Hot Potatoes by Arnold Bennett. Part 1. It was considered by certain people to be a dramatic moment in the history of musical enterprise in the Five Towns when Mrs. Swann opened the front door of her house at Bleakridge in the early darkness of a November evening and let forth her son Gilbert. Gilbert's age was 19, and he was wearing evening dress, a form of raiment that had not hitherto happened to him. Over the elegant suit was his winter overcoat, making him bulky, and round what may be called the rim of the overcoat was a white woolen scarf, and the sleeves of the overcoat were finished off with white woolen gloves. Under one arm he carried a vast inanimate form, whose extremity just escaped the ground. This form was his violoncello, fragile as a pretty woman, ungainly as a navvy, and precious as honour. Mrs. Swann looked down the street, which ended in the east in darkness and a mile pit, and up the street, which ended to the west in Trafalgar Road and electric cars, and she shivered, though she had a shawl over her independent little shoulders. In the Five Towns, and probably elsewhere, when a woman puts her head out of her front door, she always looks first to the right and then to the left, like a scouting Iroquois, and if the air nips, she shivers, not because she is cold, but merely to express herself. "For goodness' sake, keep your hands warm," Mrs. Swann enjoined her son. "Oh," said Gilbert, with scornful lightness, as though his playing had never suffered from cold hands, "it's quite warm tonight," which it was not. "And mind what you eat," added his mother. "There, I can hear the car." He hurried up the street. The electric tram slid in thunder down Trafalgar Road, and stopped for him with a jar, and he gingerly climbed into it, practising all precautions on behalf of his violoncello. The car slid away towards Bursley, making blue sparks. Mrs. Swann stared mechanically at the flickering gas in her lobby, and then closed her front door. He was gone. The boy was gone. Now, the people who considered the boy's departure to be a dramatic moment in the history of musical enterprise in the Five Towns were Mrs. Swann chiefly, and the boy secondarily. Part 2. And more than the moment, the day, nay, the whole week, was dramatic in the history of local musical enterprise. It had occurred to somebody in Hanbridge about a year before that since York, Norwich, Hereford, Gloucester, Birmingham, and even Blackpool...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?